We have heard from Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein saying that they're not trying the case on television or congressional hearings, that they do reserve judgment. However, the timing of this announcement is pretty interesting.
Yeah, Rosenstein said that there was no intentionality to the timing, that it was just when the case was done. But I do think it's important to note that Rosenstein said they had briefed the president on this. And of course, it's a couple of days before his meeting with Putin. I think if I had to guess Rosenstein's train of thought, you can't have a president go in to meet with the leader of a foreign adversary without knowing this information, right? It's important. And clearly Trump had been in some sort of denial. He had denied that the Russians had anything to do with this hacking, not so. And so any president needs to be equipped with the full information before he goes into a high-stakes meeting like that.
And Mr. Rosenstein also emphasizing that there was still no evidence that Americans had knowingly tried to help Russians. So this is quite interesting because we have about 30 indictments in Mr. Mueller's investigation, and yet the connection between Russians and also the campaign still hasn't been made. So what's next?
Yeah, I mean, those connections could be made, though. If you look at the indictment carefully, there are several unnamed actors. There's an unnamed American company. There's an unnamed American individual who the indictment says was connected to the Trump campaign, who was interacting with these Russian actors. So there could well be more shoes to drop. And keep in mind, you do have connections on sort of the other arm of Russian interference, which is the attempt by Russian agents to provide or sell dirt on Hillary Clinton to George Papadopoulos, to Michael Flynn, to others in Trump's campaign. So you do have the link there. Here we don't have it yet, but if you sort of read between the lines of the indictment, that could be coming.
There are a lot of specifics around how the Russians may have been moving information and payments, cryptocurrencies. Is it fair to say that at the very least we've learned new ways by which potentially there was interference here?
Yeah, I mean, it's really alarming, the indictment, when you look at it. Forget about Republican, Democrat, anything. Just as an American citizen, how vulnerable our electronic communications are. I mean, and you read about some of the sophisticated ways that the Russians not only hacked into presumably very secure systems at the DNC, at the Clinton campaign, but also managed to hide their tracks, and how difficult it was to track them down. And you can read about some of the sophisticated techniques that the Russians use, like this idea of spear phishing, which perhaps some of us have experienced attempts, where you get an email saying you need to reset your Amazon password or your Google password, but you notice that one letter is slightly off or the punctuation isn't quite right. But it's hard to tell that. And it's alarming when you see this, what the Russians were able to do.
It's very scary, and yet Mr. Rosenstein made a point to say that this is not evidence that actually they swayed election results in 2016. So when we look at the Mueller investigation right now, everything that's come out, and the fact that President Trump has yet to be interviewed, where do we think we are? Is it towards the end, the middle, the beginning? Where are we?
My best guess, having done sort of complex investigations, is we're not extremely close to the end. You can think of a lot of things that still need to be done. Like you mentioned, there still needs to be some sort of interview or subpoena of the president. If they don't work out terms of an interview, then I would guess that goes to a subpoena, and then the president has indicated through his lawyers, through Rudy Giuliani, they're going to fight that. They're going to claim executive privilege. That's probably going to have to go up to the Supreme Court. That takes time. There still might be cooperation forthcoming from Michael Cohen. There certainly has been strong indicators of that. And if that happens, it takes some time for the prosecutors to sit down and debrief Michael Cohen and get everything he knows and turn it into a charge if appropriate. So I don't think we're near the end.